Distilled shenanigans. Distilled shenanigans. Hey everyone, welcome to Sip, Savor, and Shake. Whiskey tasting and whiskey sours. Very excited to be rolling with this episode. We had a very dry content episode in Distilling 101, but I feel like it was kind of good to have some of the base knowledge on what's happening on the back end and why that mash bill is so important. Somebody asked me the other day if these were supposed to be funny. Maybe. When we're doing the informational stuff, it's a little dry. As I get more comfortable with the technology and the camera and all of that, my personality might come out a little bit more. But until then, here's a picture of my cat rascaling on some witch legs. I really should throw those away, but every year she loves them. She gets 6 weeks with the witch legs, and she goes to town. So there you go. So today, tasting whiskey. I am going to start us off just with some Maker's Mark today. So if you want to grab Maker's Mark and taste with me, go ahead. If not, that's fine, because you either love it or you hate it. You will see in front of me, besides my whiskey sour glass, I have two different types of whiskey tasting glasses. This one right here is the Glencairn glass. This glass is pretty traditional. Now this glass right here is the official Kentucky Bourbon Trail tasting glass. It is shaped quite different than the Glencairn. It has a much larger opening in the glass, which allows for a little bit more of the aromas to kind of come up into the nose. I find this one dangerous for me because I am a recovering wine drinker, so that my nose gets a little too close to that one. But the first thing that we're going to want to look at is the appearance. So let me pour a little bit of whiskey into this glass. You don't need much, maybe a 1/4 ounce. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at the appearance. You'll notice we have a beautiful caramel color. We'll swirl it in the glass, and you'll see it has some legs, the little teardrops that fall down on the glass. The more legs there are, the higher the viscosity, and that means the higher the alcohol by volume, or it's an indicator of the age of the whiskey. So the next thing we're going to is the nose. How does it smell? Let me just give you a tip. Do not go in, full in, and take a big sniff of the spirit. You will burn your nose. It does not feel good. Your eyes will water. It will be a nightmare. So you just want to protect the nose. And so now we're going to bring the glass to your nose with your mouth open. I find that if I have my mouth open, I can get a better taste. I haven't tasted it yet. I can get a better smell. First time you bring this glass up to your nose, it's going to overwhelm the senses. So you kind of take it back, take a breath, take another sniff, bring her back, take another sniff, take it back. And as you do that, you will start smelling a little different flavor profile. So for me, Maker's Mark always smells like sweet. It smells sweet to me. I always smell vanilla. Like I feel like I'm diving into a vanilla bean, right? And then some fruit in there. Some people will say that they smell a lot of bright fruit. But that sweetness, I usually attribute to wheat. And Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon. That's why I usually choose this as one of the gateway bourbons, because it's a little sweeter. Wheated bourbons are a little smoother. So it's just a nice entry. But there's some people that do not enjoy wheated bourbon. So Maker's Mark may not be your cocktail. Okay, so now that we've decided it smells sweet, smells like vanilla. Oh, that kind of smelled the cherry. I think I have a thing for cherries. It's a good thing I live in Michigan and I think we're the leader in the tart cherry industry. So maybe that's maybe that's why I like cherries. I don't know. Next up is the palate. How does the whiskey taste? Did you know that different parts of your tongue have different receptors for taste? You got the front that does the sweet, you have salty on the side and bitter, and it's fascinating. So when you taste a whiskey, you really want to make sure that you hit all those taste buds. My very first taste, I'm going to actually swish this around in my mouth to I think it's kind of to numb the mouth. We learned this when I went on a distilling tour in Louisville a few years back. And then once you get your mouth acclimated to the bourbon, then you can really start tasting the flavors. So let's try it. Whew. All right. Definitely tastes a little different after a whiskey sour, I tell you what. Oh, God. Whew. All right. So now we're going back in. So this is going to be kind of like how we do the nose. You're going to take your first sip, bring it back, take a breath, really kind of see what the finish look feels like, and then you're going to go back for seconds. See, now that time it wasn't as burny. Oh, that was a technical term, burny. that time it didn't have quite the sting that you would have. That's the alcohol content, the body intensity kind of simmers down a little bit, and you're left with a little bit more flavor. I can feel a little bit of that bourbon hug coming down. So we went in for seconds. We said hi again. We're going to come back. Really taste the vanilla and oak on the finish there. For the finish and balance, it really didn't burn. It didn't have a long finish on the tongue. It's there, but it's not like clinging. It tastes a little creamy to me. I think wheated bourbons taste a little sweeter, a little creamier, but you can tell if it's wheated or if it's rye or just regular bourbon once you start tasting more and more. I do want to point out that you do not need a Glencairn glass or an official Kentucky Bourbon Trail tasting glass to taste whiskey. You can taste it out of a red Solo cup if you so choose, or any rocks glass will do as well. With the rocks glass and Solo cup, make sure that nose is protected when you're doing the tasting. However, these Glencairn glasses are not that expensive, so if you're going to start diving into the world of whiskey, it might be worth asking for a set for your birthday or for Christmas or just because, whatever holiday you may or may not celebrate in your family. So I hope you enjoyed learning about tasting. Now we're going to move on to libation legends. Today's cocktail is going to be the whiskey sour, and we're going to be giving the history off of the manual website, and the article that I'm getting my information from is A Brief History of the Whiskey Sour by Sam Slaughter. The whiskey sour is much like the Manhattan and the Old Fashioned. It did not really get its name until the 1860s. So here we go. The whiskey sour officially dates back to the 1860s, but sailors in the British Navy had been drinking something very similar for long before that. On long sea journeys, water was not always dependable, so to combat that, spirits were often consumed to help prevent disease, like scurvy. Ooh. Finally, sugar and water were added to taste. At this point, the drink is probably starting to sound familiar. When it comes to the official record, there are three main points of reference for the whiskey sour. The first written record comes from the seminal 1862 book, The Bartender's Guide, How to Mix Drinks by Jerry Thomas. The next reference comes from, of all places, the 1870 edition of the Waukesha Plains Dealer, which is a Wisconsin newspaper. The final reference to the drink comes 2 years later in 1872. A former ship steward, Elliot Staub, invented a drink, the whiskey sour, in a bar in Lequig, which was then part of Peru. I just butchered that. Apologies to that group. It is through these three mentions that we know the whiskey sour as we drink it today. Cheers, everyone. You only get one shot. Make it top shelf.